Tuesday. Right. Listen at any of these. I saw
He goes, yes, I remember. He goes, I said, well, you know. But it doesn't, not today.
Good evening. Thanks all for coming out to our meeting candidate evening. We're going to get started. My name is Patty Reich. I'm the secretary for the PTA Council in South Country. Chris Moresco, co-president. So welcome. This evening we have 8 candidates for our 4 open seats on the 2019-2020 Board of Education. Melissa Aruda, James Ford, Ann Hayes, Karen Johnson, Clyde Parker, Sean Patrick Lee, Christine Rignola, and Cameron Trent. Thank you to all the candidates for taking time to be here this evening with us. Our evening's event will be moderated by Suffolk Regional PTA, and our moderators this evening are Jerry Bringman and Joy Jensen. Thank you all again for your attendance, and now I'd like to turn the evening over to our moderators, and they will let us know how the evening will go.
Okay, so just want to go through the guidelines real quick. Each candidate will be allowed 3 minutes to make a presentation stating qualifications and reasons for running. When the 3 minutes are up, the timekeeper will ring a bell to signify that the sentence must be completed. All questions will be taken from those on written index cards, reviewed and selected by the moderator. You may not necessarily hear your question the way it was written. Sometimes we'll get 2 or 3 of the very similar questions, so we'll just do a combo on that. The questions that you submit need to be answerable by everybody up there. You can't pick 1 or 2 people. It has to be answerable by all of the candidates. Each candidate is given the opportunity to answer each question in 1 minute. When the minute is up, the timekeeper will ring a bell indicating the candidate must finish the sentence. No rebuttals are allowed during the question and answer period. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to make a closing statement, after the last question has been answered. At that time, candidates can make rebuttals. The length of the program will be determined by the president or chairman or moderator prior to the beginning of the evening. We'll just see how it goes. We won't run any later than 9 o'clock. If we have a lot of questions and we get going, we'll make 9 o'clock the last question and do the closing statements. Presentations will be in alphabetical order. Closing statements will be in reverse order. And when we do the questions, we'll start maybe with the first person, then the second question, we start with the second person, the third question, we start with the third person, and work our way around. Alrighty, no literature may be given out at this meeting by the candidate or the candidate's supporters. Alrighty, and that being said, I'll open it up. So, going in alphabetical order, Ms. Aruda.
Last name couldn't start with Z, huh? Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank the South Country PTA Council and the Suffolk PTA for hosting tonight's evening. I think it's very important that the community gets to know the candidates and their stances. My name is Melissa Aruda. I have been a resident of the district for almost 15 years. My husband Joe and myself decided to move to this community because we wanted to raise our children in a diverse community like we grew up. So we're extremely happy to be residents of South Country. I have a 7th grade son at Belport Middle School and a 5th grade daughter at Frank P. Long. I've been an educator in the Brentwood School District for the past 18 years, and I believe with my experiences as an educator and working directly with children, I can bring knowledge and understanding to meeting the needs of our learners. About 5 years ago, I started regularly attending the board meetings. And my attendance at the board meetings have given me a really strong understanding of board expectations, protocols, and budget planning. I equally became involved in committees in the district. I have been a member of the Teaching and Learning Committee for the past 4 years, and also a member of the Literacy Task Force Committee. I sat on the Vern W. Kritz PTA as the second vice president for a year as well. That aside, I've been extremely vocal in meeting with administration and with board members to advocate for our children and their needs. I've advocated for curriculum initiatives at the 6th grade level, which will also be instilled throughout the grade levels at the middle school. I will continue to push for curriculum that will provide meaningful instruction that encompasses the whole child learner. I've worked tirelessly to ensure that district-created exams are lessened and grade level appropriate throughout the district. Moving forward, it is my goal to continue to be the voice of our children. I want to bring South Country to the forefront. We have the resources sitting right here in our classrooms. It is time to work collaboratively for the greater good. We need meaningful instruction that encompasses all learners, increased out of the classroom learning experiences, collaboration, transparency, and ensuring that the health and safety of our students and staff is the utmost priority at all times. Collaboration is the key to success. I want to be the voice for the community and for the children. I want to listen, hear, and act on the concerns of the South Country community, building a partnership for the greater good.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ford?
Hi, my name is James Ford. I want to thank everybody for showing up tonight. I love seeing the active community in here. I think that live streaming, I think that's awesome. Also, this is our first time doing that, so thank you for that. And hello to everybody out there who was watching there. So thank you for this and hosting. I'm a United States Air Force veteran. I'm a coach. I'm a parent, most importantly, a concerned citizen in the community. I've been in this community for more than 12 years now. Back when we started looking, my wife and I, we started looking at different school districts and things and areas that we were moving into. I grew up in Brentwood. It was very diverse. We had a lot of activities, and I said, you know what, I want something like that for our son. So South Country fit the bill. It was between the diversity here, the pre-K program here, there was the school activities, the intramurals, all the other things in there. I can go on the list of things that really pushed the decision for us to come into the South Country District. So back 12 years ago, that's when we decided to do that, and we've been here since. I've been actively on multiple committees, shared decision-making committee, I'll go through different ones in there, but through several of them, active in PTAs, class parents when I can be, from pre-K at the Methodist, Belport Methodist, all the way through, I'm in the schools as much as I can be, because I'm that interested and want to be that much part of what's going on. Back years ago, I made sure I voted every single time for more than a decade for people I trusted and people that I knew I could entrust my child and the decisions to be on the board. So what I did, certain people out there who I said, listen, that's the voice, it represents me, it represents the community, I believe, and I voted for them. And when I got a call a little while ago that from one of the people who were on the board that they were stepping down, they had to in a situation, and they were looking for somebody to get in there. That's what made me make the decision that I have to make. If I want to see those things happen, I have to make sure that I take the time and do it as well. So, I was able to trust people in the past, not that I don't trust our board now, but losing 4 people on there, it leaves an opening that we have to, we have to step up to. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to be a voice of the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Hayes?
Thank you to everybody who's organized this evening and who came out. I feel like I'm addressing you as if I'm applying for a job, because that's how I've approached the decision to run for this board. I looked at my professional career and thought about what is it that I could do with my next career, and how could I put that to work with things that I'm able to do and that I can do it giving back to the community that I've lived in for 40 years. As a job applicant, I thought back to the book, What Color Is Your Parachute?, which came out in the 80s, and a lot of people would look at it when they're changing careers. One part of it says, identify the things that you've enjoyed about your existing career, the one you're leaving. I thought about that, and as an attorney, what I liked best was getting to know my clients, identifying what their real problems were, helping them come to a way to solve the problems, create a plan for them and for their families so that their goals could be reached. I like doing the research to do that. And I said, well, a board member needs to be able to do those things that I like to do. I'm able to look at competing interests and weigh the equities and help people decide what's the best approach. I also looked at what I've enjoyed as being a volunteer and advocate in my community. And I too have been involved with the preschool at Bellport Methodist Church, and our paths have crossed. I have been the chairman of the Weekday Education Committee for close to 15 years. The kids who started my first year there are probably graduating this year from the high school. And I've been in the process of retiring for 3 years. This is the year I'm doing it. I also have stayed interested in the school district itself from the time my 2 children were in high school in particular until today. In addition, the other job that I have had is as a parent, and that was the hardest job I think I've ever had, but it's also been the most rewarding. My husband and I have lived in the Bellport area for 40 years. We raised our 2 sons here. Both of them graduated from the high school. I've enjoyed seeing the good parts of what this district offers to our students throughout that time, and even today I am serving on the Strategic Planning Committee.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Johnson?
Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to either be here tonight or stream from home or work wherever you are. Bear with me, I'm a little nervous up here. My name is Karen Johnson, and I've been a resident of the district for almost 14 years. I have 2 children. One is 2014 Bellport High School graduate. He's graduating from college this weekend. And my daughter is a 5th grader at Frank P. Long Intermediate School. In my professional life, I deal with a lot of large and small programs taking place at the same time, each with hundreds of moving parts, strict budgets, and very tight timelines. So I feel that that's prepared me for serving on a school board because there's very similar circumstances oftentimes. And I feel that that's definitely provided me with the skill set to be able to do so. I tend to work very hard to identify issues and determine how to resolve them, as well as acknowledge what is working right at all times, because it does serve as motivation, and I think that people are much more productive when they are motivated by positive things happening around them. Like many of you, I love our district. There's just so many good things about it, really good things. Our sports programs, our music and arts programs, our teachers and staff, they're really top-notch. But at the same time, there's definitely room for improvement, and I would love to be part of making those improvements here. I believe if I'm elected to the school board, I can work efficiently with the other board members to bring these improvements about. I do have several areas that are my primary focuses, but of course there's a million other focuses that we all have. But communication is probably the biggest, followed by safety preparedness, the landfill issues that we all mostly are aware of, and our school food program. Because when children are fed well, they are happy and healthy, and they are focusing better in the classroom, which benefits everybody. So thank you again for coming out or streaming, and I appreciate that you all took the time to learn about the candidates. There's so many of us here, and we appreciate that you're making informed decisions next Tuesday when you vote. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Parker?
Hi, my name is Clyde Parker. I have nothing to do with the Methodist Church in Bend. It's a disclaimer. However, I am a veteran, a businessman, a community volunteer, a husband, a father, and an active board member of the Long Island Community Hospital, the Boys and Girls Club of Bellport. I am the president of the Rosa Parks Democratic Association. You know, I was born and raised in Oklahoma, a real country boy, where my faith and my values were shaped. I'm a caring family man. I'm a businessman who understands and will advocate for South Country. An experienced manager who knows how to work as part of a team and how to affect change. I can take my glasses off now because everything else I would say is about just being active in the community. I'm active in Bellport, north and south. For some people, that is a big divide. I sit on the committees that I am part of, or the finance committees, Jesus, what else do I do? I know, but anyway, I would love to be part of the South Country Community School Board. I think I could bring a lot to the table. I've been in the community for 20 years. My wife and I, we have 3 children, 5 grandkids, and we're just happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Patrick Reese?
Hello, thank you all for coming out tonight and taking the time. My name is Sean Patrick Reese, and I've been in the community for 4 years. I'm a bank manager locally. I'm in the community. I do a lot of community work in Medford. I'm on 2 chambers, and I'm also an Eastern Star. I'm running for the school board because I would like to bridge the gap between the parents and the teachers. I teach financial literacy from Brooklyn to Montauk. So this is one reason why I wanted to run for the school board, is because what is a better way of giving back to the community than to run for the school board and become part of the school board and to give back to the children. The children are our future. So I just want to be part of it. I am not an educator at all. I'm not going to pretend to be. I'm a bank manager. But I do teach the children financial literacy. And by that, I just want to give back. And I just want to be part of. So I do appreciate you all having me here tonight. And I do feel honored just to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Regnola?
Okay, and I too would like to thank everyone for coming here tonight, to take time out of your evening. I'd also like to thank the PTA and everyone who's organized this, and also the other candidates. This takes a lot of time, out of your schedule, and as well as board service takes a lot of time and commitment. And I commend everybody here for putting your hat in the ring, with me. And I wish you all luck, but as long as I get a seat too. I was born and raised here, and after I graduated from here, I went on to get my bachelor's degree in education, my master's degree in education. Currently, I'm working in community development, actually. I'm an experienced board member. As most of you probably have seen, I've served in Patchogue Medford a couple of terms. And what I've learned there, through all the networking I've done, all the volunteering, the committee chairing, seminars and all kinds of workshops that I've been to, it really got me excited about what I could do here. This is a great district, but I would like to challenge every aspect to ask, what can we do better? Because we do have a lot of potential, and this is, just by the showing of how many people are here, that's great. just to see how many people are interested in the candidates and what we have to offer. I think that's a really good indicator of what we can do as a community. There's a lot of things that I would like to address. I'm a big advocate of whole child education. Very child-centered. I personally am very community-minded, so I care about what the community wants as well. Something that I learned by going to actually a conference was how important it is to involve community stakeholders and get them collaborating with education. You can, there's so many things that you can do that I only have 1 minute left, but when you have that collaboration, you can create so many opportunities as far as for the community and as far as education opportunities for the kids. There's growth there, and then when you have a flourishing school district, people want to stay, people want to buy here, so you are going to create not only world-class, well-rounded education, but also, a good community where people want to buy here and stay here and invest in the community. Their time, not just their money, but also their time. I do a lot of volunteering. I'm in the Lions Club. I'm a board member of our Community Salutes, which I probably don't have enough time to talk about. I also want to take care of some health and safety issues here in the district that, that need to be addressed as well. I did work at Frank P. Long, and that's it.
Okay. All right, thank you. Mr. Trent?
Well, first I want to say I want to thank everybody for being here. I decided to run for the board because even though our district is amazing, and even though that we have tons of potential, and we have amazing faculty, there are still some issues that have been around for a couple of years, and I think that it's about time that we get to dealing with those issues. I just wanted to mention that I believe that the district needs and deserves trustees, whomever they may be, that are willing and able to put their relationships with the other trustees, personal or political, to the side and focus on their duties as a board member. Excuse me. I'm 21 years old, and I've lived in the district my entire life, and I'm extremely grateful for the work that I have been able to accomplish in my community. For instance, 2 years ago, I was elected to the board of the South Country Library, where we have, basically pioneered in the area of transparency and communication. We have enabled our patrons to voice their concerns. We have, comment boxes all throughout the library. We have an active social media campaign. We post multiple times a day. We have a mailer that goes out. We have polls and questionnaires that go out. I've even witnessed patrons knock on the director's door and ask her a question and got an answer, which may be something that's kind of rare in this district. But not even to mention the fact that they make themselves available. They sit in the room in our library and they allow patrons to come in and ask questions, share their comments and concerns. We at the library, we do a lot of things that kind of makes us, an awesome organization that the district ought to do. But like I said, it starts at the top. In order to have a district that is transparent, the leaders of the district must also be transparent. And it may be because I'm in my 20s, but I have a real get her done attitude. And it really makes me upset to see a lot of issues, just happen, not be addressed every year. And I think it's time that we address them. And I can assure you, starting day one, that we will begin to rectify those issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, we'll start with questioning. And just a reminder, it's only one minute to answer. Because we have 8 candidates and it takes a while to get through a question. First question, we'll open with Ms. Aruda. What do you see as the biggest problem facing the South Country schools, and how would you go about addressing it?
I feel as though the biggest problem currently within the district is the collaboration between administration, teachers, and the community. I have, as I stated earlier, worked on committees under 3 different assistant superintendents, and there has definitely been a shift in how those committees are run. It really has become a top-down district where our teachers and our community are not getting the say that maybe they need to have. So my focus would be to build that collaboration. It's key to success.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Forrest?
Could you read that one more time, sorry?
Sure. What do you see as the biggest problem facing South Country schools, and how would you address it?
Okay, so the biggest problem I have to say is the same problem that I hear year after year. So as I come and listen, and I've live streamed some, or not live streamed, watched some of the videos, everybody keeps saying it's communication and transparency, and I hear that year after year, truly. And I believe that still becomes the issue. So everybody who runs says they're gonna fix the transparency and the communication, and then the next year it's still one of the top issues that everybody speaks about. So it's the biggest problem. So if it's there every single year, it's the biggest problem out there. So somebody needs to be able to bring everybody together and get the communication out there the way that it needs be. As a business owner, the thing that I do primarily is I bring people together and I get the ideas across and communication across that need be and get it out there. So being with top priority, the communication for me would be something that I'd be very strong at, and it's one of the things I'm strong at and currently successful in my business with.
Okay. We have a request from the audience, if the candidates could just speak a little bit louder. Unfortunately, we don't have microphones, so it's usually not a problem for me, but. Alrighty, so we'll go to Ms. Hayes.
I think our biggest challenge is also one of our biggest opportunities, and that is we have a very diverse population in the school district. Our demographics have changed considerably over the last several decades, and it's more closely imaging what we find when we leave our immediate area. And we've got a lot of opportunity to work with our students to prepare them to enter into the population and their jobs after school, and to strive, by helping them strive for success in the school. We need to stress the importance of family and friends and productive work and give them a leg up to be able to get the professions and the jobs that they need in order to be productive members of our community after they leave the school. To do it,
Sorry. Okay. Ms. Johnson?
I share a lot of the same frustrations and concerns as Melissa and James expressed with hearing about problems year after year and not seeing enough action taken to make the improvements. And some of us know that there's also some committees within the district. A lot of people don't know about the committees. These committees get together and discuss what the issues are and how to make improvements, but if not enough people know that they exist, we obviously are not optimizing them, we're not utilizing them to the best of their abilities. We need to really get more people involved in these committees to discuss what the issues are from all sides, from teachers, from students, from parents, from staff, and really start listening and taking action.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Parker?
I want to start off by saying I won't start by saying there's a problem. But diversity is an issue that I would like to address. I think if you look in this room, you'll see that we don't have many people of color sitting in this room representing the many minority kids in that classroom. I'd like to see that addressed. Transparency is another issue that I would like to see addressed. So those two issues would be things that I would deal with. And I know I don't have a lot of time, so I'll stop.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Ms. Patrick Reese?
I agree with all the other candidates, what they're saying about communication, transparency, diversity. But what happened to the accountability? We need accountability. In order for all of this to work, we need accountability. So we have all these great things into place, but just having them and not making them happen or not holding someone accountable is not going to work. We're going to have the same problem over and over again. Who is that said that? Albert Einstein. You do the same thing over and over again and you think you're going to come out with something different? Is insanity? So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. McMullen?
Sure. I think I have a pretty unique answer to this question because I have heard the questions for the past few years from people who live here. Why don't we have what that district has? Why don't we do what that district has? And my answer, it goes along with a speech that I used to make to the moving up ceremony kids when they were going from middle school up to high school or elementary school up to middle school. I used to tell them, you know, when you see other people having things, don't ask, why don't I have that? Because my answer is, that's right, why don't you? Why don't you? Do something about it. If you want something, you're going to do something about it. And that's how I feel about what's going on here. And when people ask me, well, why don't we do it like that district? And why? First of all, every district is very unique. They have their own needs. Every school is unique. But we have to address what we want and actually go for it. We need to increase the morale and make everybody believe they can make a difference.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Trent?
Well, I want to echo what Mr. Parker said. Diversity is a big issue in our district when it comes to the minority students being represented. But I want to mention, time permitting, my top three concerns. And the first one is properly addressing the situation at Frank P. Long. The second one is Every Student Succeeds Act in the area of having two schools being labeled CSI, Comprehensive Support and Improvement Schools, especially in the area of the push to have more students in AP classes. And the third one would be our chronic absenteeism. That also needs to be addressed right away. So those are my three top concerns. There are a lot of other issues, but time permitting, those are my top three.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, the second question is start with Mr. Ford and work our way around. And due to time constraints, we'll have to do some combo questions here. So, big issue here in this district is Frank P. Long Middle School and the situation with the environment and the landfill and whatever. So, in a minute, what is your opinion of the situation at Frank P. Long? And what would you do to best try and rectify it?
That's a lot to put in 60 seconds.
Yeah, I know.
All right,
I wish I could give you 2 minutes.
No, that's all right. Two still wouldn't cover it. So Frank P., I've heard quite a bit on this over the last few years now, and I know that looking into trying to find out some of the studies and some of the testing that's been done, and there's been testing it wasn't accurate, and I'll go into all the different things out there. There's more hearsay out there than there is anything else, and I'm not saying there's not an issue, because there absolutely is, but there's a lot of inaccurate information being passed around everywhere on this. That testing was done and it was done accurately. Testing was done, it wasn't done accurately. It was done on a windy day in the middle of January. It was done from the south. Listen, there's an issue, there's a problem, 100%, and something needs to be done to address that. The town has already looked at it and said that they're going to be doing something about it, which is wonderful, but that doesn't help us here. So with that being said, and again, knowing that the time constraints here, I believe that there has to be more, and I say it, again, it's going to be an echo here, more transparency in some of the testing that has been done, what the actual results were, and what we can do moving forward.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Hayes?
With regard to the Frank P. Long testing that's been done, I would like to get a second opinion. I look at it the same way we would if it was a medical professional advising me to get surgery. I would want a second opinion about whether that treatment is appropriate. The second opinion would be by a professional who knows about workplace environmental issues and who knows what appropriate testing would be and could evaluate that the appropriate tests were done. With regard to rectifying it, I'm not in a position now to tell you exactly what would be done to rectify it, but I do know that as a part of the district and as a citizen in the town of Brookhaven, if any advocacy needs to be done, I think it's appropriate for a board to take a position about how to direct that advocacy and speak to the people responsible for actually rectifying the problem.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Johnson?
We've heard the test results, we've seen them over and over again, and we must listen to the numbers. The number of teachers who have been diagnosed with cancer, the number of teachers who have died, the number of students who have had symptoms, we can't ignore it. We cannot ignore it. We can't allow this to continue. Maybe the testing just isn't advanced enough. Maybe the correct tests are not being done or on the correct combinations of toxins. We absolutely need to continue pushing forward on this. As far as rectifying it, last year there was a list of options, including an empty school building in a nearby district. We declined that option, and I'm sure there are several options again this year. I would make it a top priority to find what those options are, including looking for another empty building that we could potentially move everyone into, while at the same time doing my best to ensure that no jobs would be at risk by making such a move.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Parker?
I've attended many meetings on the Frank P. Long situation. I see several people in this room that were at the same meetings. And each time we hear the same thing. It depends on which side you're on. I believe very much, I echo what everyone else has said. I think more testing has to be done, but from an independent agency, someone who really is not necessarily being paid for by the same people again. I would love to see that happen. I think that until we can, and I think we should try and solve this, but it is very important that we do more testing and have open and diverse conversations, as I've attended several in the past.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Patrick Reese?
Yes, I also agree with all my other constituents here. I think with the environmentals, I think we should see if we can hire an outside environmental agency that also specializes in radiation and also the different things dealing with the land, because there has to be something that is there, not just in the building. It has to be within the land or so itself. And also too, if there is an empty school building where it's not going to interrupt anything with the teachers and the children, if it's going to make it safer if we can move them over there without interrupting too much, so this way the testing can be done. We have to save them. We have to save them.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Winola?
Okay, well, number one, health and safety is number one in all the schools. If you don't have healthy environment, safe environments, you don't have a sound educational environment. So that's number one. I've worked at Frank P. Long, and I can tell you firsthand, now that I left, I've never felt better. A little chunkier maybe, but I've never felt better. There definitely are health issues at Frank P. Long. What they are specifically, what the answers are specifically, I don't know. I'm not going to pretend to know for a fact what they are. But if I am elected, I would work with the other board members to try to get them to address the issue of the health and safety in that building. I drank out of a faucet in the faculty room for a year. I made my tea from that faucet, and after a year, a sign appeared that said the water's not potable. So, that might explain some of the health issues I was having, but I would like to find out what it is.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Trent?
Well, I want to talk about what we can do moving forward. I believe that there needs to be a study of current and former educators about the illnesses that they had while working in the building. And And then I believe that the students' medical records must be kept in detail while also being available in a statistic version while protecting the privacy of the students. We need to create a plan in the event where we must educate our students in another location, for any reason. And I also want to echo what Ms. Hines said about having a second opinion. I believe that we should use the new legislative committee that we've created to pressure our local governments to take action on this matter, because it's not only a district issue, but it's a community issue. And I want to make sure that 100% of the air is filtered in the building, and make sure that there are air quality, and if I may continue, because this is important, if there are air monitors in all of the classrooms. And we should also have a comprehensive study as to other illness causes. If it's not the air, what is it? And parents should also be notified when their students have a visit to the nurse.
Sorry, otherwise everyone will be running.
And it's just an important topic.
You might get another, I understood. You might get another shot somewhere down the line with that. Alrighty, and Ms. Aruda.
Again, a minute is not very long in this particular question. I happen to be last, so I do echo a lot of what everybody else said. I drop off my daughter every single morning to Frank P. Long, and it smells. It smells not only at Frank P. Long, but it smells within the community. It is absolutely a district and a community issue. And we need to work together for additional testing to find out exactly what is going on and to work on closing the dump. We know this. This is not new information. I work in a building of similar size and similar staff. We do not have the cancer rate that they have at Frank P. Long. There is definitely something going on there that we need to continue to look into. And I thank the teachers and I thank the community members that have brought it to light so that we can work collaboratively to make sure that additional testing continues going on, not only the air, but the water as well.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, so the third question, we'll start with Ms. Hayes. And how do you feel about the current security in our schools? And if you're not comfortable, what would you do to improve the security? Or do you think it's fine? So what is your opinion of school security?
I know that the school district is making efforts to improve security. They've put a proposition on the budget vote next week to apply some capital reserve funds to have the entryway at Kramer Street bolstered. And they're also waiting for approval from the state for plans to get the entryways at the other schools bolstered as well. I look forward to having an opportunity to be part of a board and committees to look further into these safety issues. But it doesn't stop at the door. We need to look at what is going on inside the school as well, deal with any root problems of behavior that make it a difficult and unsafe and insecure environment for our students and our staff. And with more allocation of resources to deal with those root problems, we can keep tabs on whether or not those resources are having the effect that we want.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Johnson?
Well, I'm not completely aware of all of the security issues that our district is facing right now, but it is something that is very important, I think, to all of us. And I would do everything I can to learn as much about the issues that we're having. That said, I do feel that it's important that we increase our safety preparedness initiatives, including having more fire drills and lockdown drills, both with and without students, in some of the more unique situations, like when students are in the gymnasium or the locker rooms, in the courtyards, in the cafeteria. We need to make sure that we're doing everything that we can as a district to make sure that our buildings are secure, not just from internal sources, but from external as well.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Parker?
Safety is a very big issue. I am very concerned for the safety of our teachers, the safety of our children. It's sad that we have to even have this conversation about safety in schools. Some schools, they have metal detectors and everything else. Our kids today are suffering from many things, including mental and social issues, and we need to be able to address these issues so that we won't have to worry about the safety issue anymore. It is a known factor that each and every incident that has taken place over the last several years, someone in school, some friend of that person has known that there is a potential for a threat of a major incident. We should talk to our young people so that they can report this, so they can tell a teacher who can then pass it on to the school and their parents.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Patrick Reese?
I say that you should ensure that we do have policies and procedures in place for security. And we should also ensure that we execute. We should also ensure that we review the policies and procedures for our security every 90 days to make sure things are working. And if things are not working, we can start making changes to make sure that our children and our teachers are safe.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Rignola?
I think the district has been making a lot of changes as far as safety. If you've been in the schools recently, they have walls in the vestibules now. It's changed quite a bit since the 70s and 80s when I was here. But for a good reason, because safety is very important. I'm not sure if the district has done a comprehensive study as far as all of the buildings other than the lobbies. I believe that we should definitely have a comprehensive study done. We should be hiring security guards who are perhaps retired police officers, people who are, I'm not saying that they would carry guns, but that they are familiar with safety procedures. And so that they could ensure that the kids are in an environment where they feel safe. I don't really think that it's that much of an issue, with the younger kids, that they feel unsafe.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Trent?
Well, the district has made, I just want to echo what a lot has been said. The district has made a lot of advancements in the areas of security. They have a geofence. If you make a 911 call in the school area, they're notified. They have a rave panic button or a panic app. They have a direct line to the dispatch center of the police headquarters. But I also think that, like was mentioned, that we need to constantly review, our security policies and procedures. And we also need to have a committee or a group of individuals that hold us accountable when we slack on following those procedures or policies. Because it only takes one instance for us to be slacking where something unfortunate happens. And I think these instances need to be done in all of our schools, not just in high school where the kids are a little bit more rowdy, where we have dozens of security guards, but also in the new pre-K center where we'll have one security guard. Those areas we need to make sure are secure as well.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Ruda?
Okay. In the world in which we live in, obviously security has definitely changed from maybe when we were younger. We're constantly seeing things on the news that are alarming, and we need to, as a district, as far as we have come, and we have come pretty far with our security here at South Country, but we need to continuously look into it and look for those loopholes that might cause there to be a little breach in the security, whether it be an active shooter or a bomb threat. And these are things that are real in our world. Our children need to be prepared for it, our teachers need to be prepared for it, and our administration needs to be prepared for it. And we've seen a little bit of that here in South Country, where we did have a bomb threat. And the way that the children were shuffled over to the Bellport Middle School was phenomenal. And these types of drills and the way that we're looking into this needs to be reevaluated and looked at all times, not only in South Country, but in every school district.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ford?
Safety is a huge priority. I mean, our children we're talking about here, the staff and everything. So I'll begin saying that it's a shame that we have to talk about it this way, today. It's a shame that this is where things have come in society. And when we talk about safety, there's two different parts of it. It's external threats and internal threats. So we have been making a lot of changes. There have been a lot of things out there that help us on the external part. Absolutely, I can't get into a school now without having an extra wall there, an extra door I have to be buzzed into, and that's wonderful. But also the internal threats, and that comes from some of those emotional issues and some of the things where we have to make sure that we're able to help the students in that. So when we're talking about internal, it's the students in there who might need extra help, might need extra counseling and things like that. So I think that it's stepping that up is very important as far as that goes.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so the next question, we'll start with Ms. Johnson. A few of the board members, or a few of the candidates indicated that there needs to be improvements in communication and transparency between the district and the parents. So the question is, if that is a problem, what would you do to improve it in the district if you were on the board? What steps would you take?
It certainly is a problem, and we've been feeling that for several years now. I mentioned earlier about the committees that we have here, and I think that they're very much underutilized and not nearly known about enough. So I would like to increase awareness about these committees and encourage people in the community who are facing challenges or struggles or feeling frustrated to go ahead and join a committee so that they can air these frustrations. I know it's been talked about in the past about having open forums. I do agree that that is something that this community can benefit from. The students, the parents, the community, everybody deserves to have this communication. Too many events are being missed. Too many rumors are being spread without having enough facts to really put people's minds at ease and educate the community. And that's what we need.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Parker?
Teachers need to be listened to. The communication is very important. How do you get that? Well, you start at the top, and I don't usually think that always starting at the top is the best place, but in this case, I think it is. I think that, if you're not listening to your teachers, you really are not, I shouldn't say that because it's probably not positive, but we have to be able to have open communications. I think having open mics, dialogues, and a more, not necessarily only at PTA meetings, because PTA meetings, they're there to discuss many different things, but you have to be able to, committees should be open, they should be open to the public, and that everyone should have a right to be able to say something at those meetings. So thank you, teachers, keep going.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Patrick Reese?
As a community, this is why we have the school board, being part of the community. I feel that the school board and the community should come together as one. There should be a little bit more clarity because honestly, in the community, people don't know what's going on. Again, you hear the rumors and everything, you can't always go by that. But again, it should be where, send out the literature, ask the opinions of the parents, invite the parents in, so this way that we could sit down and discuss what's going on. No one should be going against one another. Everybody should come together to come to a solution. The solution is for the child. It's not for each other to go back and forth. It's for the child. You want to do the best for the child. If you don't do it, then we're going to keep going on and having the same problem. It's for the child.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Rignola?
Okay, so communication can change in a lot of different ways. As far as updating the way the website would be maybe a little more user-friendly. It's not bad, but I think, we can make it a little more user-friendly and informational. Maybe things such as, I don't know how the community would feel about it, but maybe like a robocall once a week. You know, we've done that in other districts before, and it was well received. I would like to survey different cohorts and give them different questions once in a while to find out how the students feel about certain things, how the community feels about certain things, the teachers. I mean, as a board member, I would be here representing the community. I would be, you know, your voice as far as what things that you want to see. I'm very approachable and definitely a problem solver. So, you know, I think that's where communication would start to change once people feel like they have a voice and that they're listened to.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Trent?
Well, I believe that members of the administration should make themselves available to the public in similar forums like this, where they can hear our questions, our comments, and our concerns. And I think that you know, like she said, we should also have a Q&A portion or area to the website, and we should send out polls to members of the community. I know ESSA, being that we have 2 schools being labeled CSI, ESSA requires us to poll the community once a year. But I believe that it should be more than that, probably quarterly. And I think that's all I have. Yeah, poll the community, you know, teachers, students, and parents.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Ruda?
Ideally, when it comes to the transparency and the communication that's coming out, I believe as a parent, when it comes to the classroom teacher and the parent, the communication's very open. And I think when people talk about transparency, what they want to see it from is from our administration. In my ideal world, this room would be filled the same way that it is right now. And the conversations that we would be having would be open conversations. Maybe local businesses would be donating food for the evening, where we were having an evening where we were talking about the wonderful things that are happening in South Country, but also the areas in which we need to improve. Where it was more of an open forum, that it wasn't a person speaking and somebody listening. And bringing it back into the community. Maybe even have an administration going out and hosting an evening at a local business where people could come and it could kind of be like a chat session, where there was more of that comfortable feeling. Right now, there's definitely a disconnect.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ford?
All right, back to communication and transparency. How did I know we were gonna circle back there? So with this, again, it's something that needs to be addressed, has been needed to be addressed for a long time now. I'm very happy to see people in here, but I'll be honest, I'm disappointed that we can only hold 40 people. I wish we had to be in an auditorium somewhere and it was filled, okay? Hopefully there's many, many people, wherever I'm supposed to be looking, you know, live streaming this, and that's wonderful. So that would be great. I'd love to see us not only live streaming, but live taking questions at the same time. I want some interaction in there. So if this is not the forum that people, except for the 40 people who are here, can actually attend and be at, let's go there. Let's go to where they can be. If it's at the Boys and Girls Club, if it's somewhere in the community, or if it's live streaming and getting questions from the internet at the time, there's districts out there who are doing that. Why can't we? Right? So that's to me, there's a lot of things we could do there, and that's just a couple.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Hayes?
The New York State Open Meetings Law is designed so that the public is supposed to be able to observe decision-making by board members. And I want to increase the amount of discussion that is made at board meetings between the board members. Too often the appearance is that decisions have already been made and there's not any real discussion about anything. I would also like to introduce work sessions. It makes more meetings for the board members to attend, but that's part of doing the homework. If we don't have reports from the Health and Safety Committee, from the Curriculum Instruction Assistant Superintendent, or from the other areas that we need to address, we're not in a position to make the best decisions to give guidance to our superintendent, who's our one and only employee. And the superintendent oversees everybody else. We want to make sure that the proper information is getting where it needs to be.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Okay, so we'll start the next question with Mr. Parker, and this is a combo question. How do you view the discipline? How do you view the discipline climate in the district, and what improvements would you like to see the district makes? How do you feel about the current discipline? Okay, so I guess the question is there too much in school suspension, not enough in school suspension, out of school suspension? The subject is discipline. So you got a minute. How do you feel about discipline in the district, and what would you do to improve it, or?
Discipline has always been an issue. And there should be guidelines, obviously. But again, I'll go back to my mental and social stability of the students. Oftentimes, students are disciplined far more than others if they are from a different group, different community. I think social workers, I think there have to be someone in that who's able to communicate with a student to find out why their child is so angry. It's hard for me to understand how a child does something, a child up to high school, and is angry about what? So there's issues going on in that child's life, whether it's at home, whether it's in the playground, bullying, there's a lot of issues. And to say that you're gonna kick a child out of school for a couple of weeks, and there may be some major issues going on in that child's life. And I just think that we have to do a better job of discipline.
Okay, sir. Ms. Patrick Reese?
I think with discipline, there should be, again, policies and procedures in place. As far as disciplining that child, I think it should be a case by case. There should be a child psychologist that should be on staff. So when it comes down to that, each child should, and the parent also has to be involved with it. So I think when it's a case by case basis, you can't treat every child the same. So again, there should be policies and procedures in place, and it has to be handled as a case by case.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Noah?
Okay, so we start off with the code of conduct for the district. If the code of conduct is not followed, that's your first problem. If the code of conduct is not effective, that's your major problem. So, we need to look at the code of conduct, maybe what needs to be improved on the code of conduct, and, how we can ensure that it's enforced. I mean, we do have laws, acts for bullying, there's DASA needs to be reported. That's more than a 30-second thing that I would talk about DASA. But, it's very important to also, like Clyde and Sean was saying, to really address why. Why do we have these issues? But in the meantime, we also, we're cited for suspending too many kids. So when the state comes down and they cite you for suspending too many kids, then all of a sudden we're not suspending anybody. I don't think kids should be kicked out of school. I don't. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Trent?
Well, I'm going to speak firsthand and say that suspensions don't work. They don't solve the underlying problem or the cause of that student being suspended. Again, the state has said that we are suspending too many students. So what do? We take them out of their regular classroom schedule and we have them attend some form of education program after school hours. But again, that doesn't solve the underlying issue either. And solving that underlying issue is difficult and is not something that is going to be a quick fix. But there's something called restorative justice. I like to call it restorative discipline. Because that solves the root of the problem. It gives the student more accountability to right the wrong that they have committed. And it lessens the chance of them being repeat offenders of whatever it is that they got in trouble for. But again, that's something that takes some effort, some elbow grease, something that the district may not want to do, but it has to do to really solve the problem.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Ruda?
Sure. Our children move from building to building quite frequently here in South Country. They start at pre-K in one building for some, and then they move to a primary school, then they move to an intermediate school, middle school, and then high school. And if we don't have consistency amongst the discipline throughout all of the buildings, it can lead to confusion, and it can also lead for children to act up. Part of the reason that I see that many of our children act up is kind of goes back to that level of collaboration, where administration, teachers, and the need for social workers and psychologists to work together as a team to look at a child and say, okay, what can we do to assist this child in meeting positive behavioral expectations? If we don't have psychologists and counselors on hand, and we have some, but not nearly enough, to assist in that, then we're going to continue to see the discipline issues. Consistency amongst every building and the expectations that need to be set, and together as a whole.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ford?
All right, discipline overall. There was multi-parts in there. As a coach, as a leader for children in many different ways, there has to be a I don't want to say strict, but a strict guideline of what the rules are supposed to be, the code of conduct, somebody said. So that has to be strictly adhered to, as far as I'm concerned. It's specific individual basis with what happens because of mental or emotional issues with a child. There has to be more support there. There has to be more understanding of why things are happening, what's going on, in their lives, outside of school, inside of school. Typically, when you have a child acting up, they're acting that way because of something else that's going on. It's not specifically what's in front of them. So if we don't know what that is, or we don't know what's going on with them, it's very difficult to help them and to help them move forward from that. I believe that it becomes the social worker, the psychologist, having counselors, things like that, and being more active in the child's time in the school.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Hayes?
Early intervention, I believe, would help introduce the child to what expected behavior is in the school district, help the child learn that the school itself is a safe place to be, and be able to work with that child so that he or she doesn't fall into the bad behavior patterns that may erupt when they become larger. And that would give them some coping skills so that hopefully by the time they are in the older grades, they have learned how to deal with going to appropriate helpers like teachers or principals or social workers or whoever's available. The inclusion of a behavioral health specialist, I think, is a good addition in our district. Probably we do need to have more professional staff like that brought on board.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Johnson?
I echo a lot of the comments that were made by all of the other candidates, and I do believe that we need to start offering more support and identify the root of the issues and not just punish, not just discipline the actions, but we need to provide rehabilitation or support or counseling, whatever is needed for each student. We really just need to have people who can dive into these issues more, try to figure out what's really going on and how to prevent it from happening again. I think what I'm hearing a lot of up here is having a whole child approach, a whole student approach, and I definitely agree with that as well. And I think it would go a long way, as well as increasing awareness in the home. Not all parents are aware of when their child is disciplined at school, or the severity or the frequency of it. And I think we need to come together. They used to say it takes a village, and it really does.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Okay, the next question will start with Ms. Patrick Reese. Just got to consolidate this a little bit. There was a letter sent home by the district regarding state testing, and the district made no mention about a parent's right to opt out their child. Do you agree or disagree with that? And what is your opinion of the opt-out movement in general? And
That's a double-edged sword. Ooh. I just recently changed my stance on that. I'm gonna go from the top down. We have to hold our teachers accountable for the curriculum that they teach. We hold our students to the curriculum that they have to learn. If the students are not tested, how can we hold them to the curriculum? You don't know where they are. I understand that you have a lot of parents who want to opt out. And they should have that option. But I think it's a double-edged sword. I feel that if a parent wants to opt out, that is your right to opt out. But I also think that it's unfair to the teachers because how do the teachers know what the students' capabilities are if they're not tested? So that's a double-edged sword.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Regnola?
Okay, so the question is whether I feel that it should have been in the notice? Could you just read the
Well,
question?
the district when they sent the notice out about the state testing, they didn't include the fact that you can opt out.
Okay.
And then what are your thoughts about the opt-out movement in general?
Okay. So I think that it should have been in the announcement that you have the option to opt out. If someone, and I feel that it's a personal parental decision on what you have your child do. I don't think that the state tests are indicative of what our teachers are doing. I don't think they are indicators on what our kids can do. The tests are not written by people who are in the trenches. They're written by people up in Albany or wherever they are doing whatever they're doing. But they're certainly not clear indicators of what's going on. The tests are extremely long. I've seen kids take hours and hours and hours struggling to complete these tests. They're not fair. I know some very well-educated people, teachers, can't answer some of these questions because they're ridiculous. The answers, multiple choice answers that you have, very ambiguous. So I think it's an individual thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Trent?
Can you repeat that question for me one more time?
Sure. A while back, the district sent home a letter about state testing, and they never made mention of the fact that a parent has a right to opt out. So do you think the district should have included that information? And also, what is your views on the opt-out movement in general?
Well, I definitely think that the district should have included information about the ability to opt their student out of that test. But my personal opinion on the opt-out movement has also changed after talking with parents. See, I have no children. And I used to think that we need to fight against the test, but not use our students as weapons and have them take the test. But after talking to some parents, I realized that there's another side to that that needs to be taken into account, and it needs to be taken into account by the parents, the district, the community educators that have no say into the parents' right to opt their child out. So, my opinion on the opt-out movement, I feel like it doesn't really matter because the tests are flawed and we need to do something with the tests. And, if the tests were amazing, the parent can still opt their child out, and it is up to them at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Ruda?
Okay, well, a minute is definitely not enough time for me on this one, but I'm going to try to make it quick. All right, absolutely parents have the right to opt their child out. The opt-out movement was started as a grassroots movement because that was our only way as parents to fight the flawed tests. These tests were written well above grade level. They had more than one more than one answer that was correct. You would have teachers standing by it, trying to find out what the correct answer was, because there was more than one correct answer. You would have children, and still do have children, who are breaking down, vomiting in the midst of it. So absolutely, the movement for parents to opt their children out is a protest. It's not a South Country thing, it is a protest against the flawed test. Right now, the tests need to be corrected. The movement is to correct the tests. not to get rid of standardized testing. There's going to be testing. We understand that. These tests are wrong at so many levels. I did it.
There you
Still have a
go.
lot more to say about that, though.
You sound like the guy at the end of the Mr. Ford.
All right. The first part of that question is, should parents have been aware and made aware of that? Absolutely. If it's an option, then they should be made aware of it. I will say that being a district that has some of the highest opt-out levels, a lot of parents do know about it. So they passed the word on, which is a good thing. So people were aware, but they should be allowed to make that decision. And if they didn't know they could, they should have been made aware. As far as the testing, I'll echo what everyone's saying here. Do I believe the testing is important? Absolutely. Is the test flawed? Absolutely. There's things that have to be done, there's things that should be done, things that could be done with it. So fixing it's not an easy thing. Some of the things have changed, some of the things it's attached to and comes out of it have been changed, but not nearly enough. There's so much in there, and there's so much that we're putting on the students at this point that giving them a flawed test and something that's we don't even get the data. We don't get the data back to know what's happening with it. So if it's for the students, we would get that data back. And that was one of the first questions I asked about it, was do we get it? Do we find out what the students are doing and how they're doing with it? I'll stop.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Haynes?
The flawed test, not just the problem with the answers and whether they're right or they're wrong or ambiguous, and the lack of data that's given back to the classroom teacher to evaluate exactly how the particular students are performing indicates that this is an area that needs to be addressed. As a board member, I would propose to work with other school boards through the New York State School Board Association to put pressure on the Commissioner of Education to straighten this out. I don't think it should be something that we have to recreate the wheel in every district. It needs to be taken care of at the higher level. And I think that New York State teachers also can have input, because there's a bigger voice when it's multiplied by these organizations as opposed to us doing it individually.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Johnson?
I support the opt-out movement. I think that if we are going to continue with a whole student approach, then we need to acknowledge and recognize that these tests are very detrimental to a lot of students. Physically, emotionally, like Melissa said, some of these kids are getting ill from the stress of these tests, and it's doing more harm than good. And I think that the decision to opt out should be left to each parent and student. And until the testing data is used in a more efficient and productive way, I will continue to support the opt-out movement. As for the letter that recently came out, this is just an example of lack of communication between the district and the parents that we've all been discussing up here. I also think that the district would make more of an effort to push back against the state, because these very tests are what's tarnishing this district, the reputation of this district. So I think we have a bigger concern here that needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Parker?
I think students should be tested on what's being taught in the classroom. So I am 100% in favor of the opt-out. I really don't have anything else to say on that, but I do, since I have a few more seconds, I would just like to comment on the discipline. When I was in school, we went to school and we knew there was never a discipline problem, because your parents took care of the problem beforehand. There was communication at home, so we didn't have that problem.
Okay, we're starting to run a little low on questions here. I got one or two more that we can go with. We are, you didn't have to get it in before we started, so if you have a question that you didn't hear, one of my combo questions, there was something specific you wanted to know, just shoot it over, say, hey, Jared, I really wanted to find out about this, and it kind of got lost. Otherwise, we might have one or two general questions that we could throw in there. All right, so question number 7, we'll start with Ms. Rignola. What is your highest priority coming onto the school board? Number 1 priority coming on.
All right, well, number 1 priority would be the kids, basically the kids. We're not providing them, I think, all that we could. We're not providing opportunities for everyone to flourish. Everyone is different. Not everyone's going to college. Not everyone is, doing a certain path. I've met with the Commissioner of Education, and, we've talked about different pathways and how that can be implemented in schools and how community stakeholders can get involved in that. And, when you get the stakeholders involved in it, you learn what's needed in the community too. Our kids are like going a certain way and then they're leaving because we're not really collaborating with what's needed here. But that would be my main concern, is really having a well-rounded program that would address the physical, emotional, academic, and social aspects that encompass, a whole child education. And increasing the morale in the district would definitely help do that. I don't think the test scores really mean squat, to be honest with you, but I think it's the morale.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Trent?
Well, the number 1 priority of the Board of Education is to provide a safe environment for our students to be educated and a safe environment for our educators to educate. My number 1 priority is a situation that's going on at Frank P. Long, because potentially that is an environment that is unsafe and that is harming our students Monday through Friday throughout the whole school year, and our educators as well. That is the number 1 issue because, potentially our students are being harmed. Don't quote me on this, but I believe it's room 107 or 108, maybe 106, where I believe it's 5 or 6 educators have developed some form of cancer, and when I walk through the hall sometimes at Frank P. Long, it's usually when no students are in the building, and when I look in the window, I couldn't imagine, what my feeling would be knowing what I know about that room and seeing students in there learning, 5-6 hours a day. We need to take care of that issue.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Ruda?
Okay, my number 1 priority is and always will be children. I have dedicated my life, my career to children and being an advocate for children. And whether I'm elected or not, whether I'm sitting on that side of the table or this side of the table, I will continue to advocate for children. I do it within my own district. I do it within my own household here at South Country. And I see what's going on here in South Country. I see how the teachers here at South Country that are in the trenches with the children don't necessarily get the voice that they need to have. Sometimes I need to be their voice, and I need to see collaboration where the teachers have a voice because they know their children, their students, the best. I need parents to be able to have that voice. They know their own children the best. My number 1 priority will always be children.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ford?
I love all the answers that I'm hearing so far, but I have to tell you that the common thing that every single one of these is going to have in what we have so far and what we're going to hear is going to come right back to what I said we've had from the beginning, is communication. And so when it becomes anything, any subject, any issue, any one of these priorities that we're going to hear right now, it's all going to come down to communication. It's going to be proper communication, open communication, being transparent, being able to listen. I can talk all day long. If somebody's not there listening to it, it doesn't make a bit of difference. It doesn't matter what I'm saying, if it's correct, if it's not. If nobody's listening on the other side to see what's going on, and this communication is back and forth. There's been wars started through history, and if you history teachers know this, wars started because of poor or improper communication. So communication is the root of every single problem that's out there. So to me, communication would be the priority.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Hayes?
My priority would be acting in the best interest of the children that attend our district. And that includes making sure that their teachers are fully involved in decision-making within the school district as far as what goes on in the classroom and how best to meet the needs of the children. It extends also into the disciplinary issues that we've talked about. It extends into any of the extracurricular activities that are available or should be made available so that children can expand themselves. I want to make sure that the board insist upon a high degree of professionalism, particularly among the administrative staff. I want to work with the strengths that I've seen in the current superintendent to enhance professionalism and good hiring practices, have the board involved at an earlier stage in hiring decisions so that the board would know that we're getting the best caliber of teachers and administrators possible.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Johnson?
Big part of what makes this district so great is our students and our teachers. And so if our district is not as good as it can be, it's coming from somewhere else. We need to make sure that the board, and it's wonderful that more than half the board will be new this year. We need to make sure that the board's focus is redirected to do everything possible to allow for this to be a safe space and a comfortable space for those teachers and students so that we can just keep improving. We need a more open-minded board who will take all of the input from tonight, 4 candidates, plus the 3 that are currently sitting on the board, need to take the words of all 8 people up here because we're sharing a lot of the same concerns, and I've got to believe we're speaking for the community because most of us are just community members here. So we need to really open up the board's minds and start focusing on those kids and teachers.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Parker?
Most important, everything about the school, the kids, the families, the communities, to work together so that those kids have a wonderful environment. I sit on several boards, but one that really I enjoy a lot is the Boys and Girls Club. I just love the fact that those kids, you walk in, I greet them, I hug them, I shake their hands. They're respectful, but it's something that was created over a number of years. It's not something that happens overnight. The kids have to feel as though they can trust the teachers, okay? And we as trustees or board members, we have to demand also that, as Ms. Hayes says, that we hold our teachers and staff to a higher standard. Because our kids, and we love them, so.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Patrick Reese?
The children. That's the one reason why I am running. I want to bridge the gap between the teachers and the parents. And earlier, I have to piggyback off what Karen Johnson said. It takes a village to raise a child, and we have to be that village. That's what I have to say.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All righty. The next question, we'll start with Mr. Trent. What do you think about the current policy that does not require the schools to notify parents of children that are being bullied? Our current policy only requires to notify parents of those that are doing the bullying because they will never incur discipline. So the subject is bullying. District handling it properly? Yes, no, and if they're not handling it properly, what do they do to improve it?
Well, this is why input from the community is important, because I don't have children in the district, but what I would say to that subject is, if you have children that are being bullied, you should definitely be notified if that's the case. If your child is doing the bullying, you should also be notified if that's the case. We need a bully, zero tolerance for bullying because when I was in school, I seen it, and I was one of the few that actually stepped up to do something about it. But usually bullying, and well, nowadays bullying occurs on social media. So it's kind of absent from the school, and it's a little bit more difficult to really, be aware of that situation. But when we need to take action on that as well. Because when I was in school, the biggest thing was girl fights, and it was usually initiated outside of school on social media, rolled over in school, and it affected the quality of everybody's education. So we definitely need to look at, external areas of bullying as well.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Ruda?
I think that goes back to something that we talked about a little bit earlier, which was the mental health aspect of it. By hiring more counselors and social workers and psychologists, not only would the child doing the bullying be seen and taken care of, but the child who is being bullied, I think that's equally important. And at that point, the parent should be notified by the psychologist, social worker, or whoever it is that is seeing the child, so that there can be, there's that word again, collaboration, so that everyone can come together for the best of the child.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ford?
Okay, I was a little confused on how the question was, so I won't ask you to read it again because it's still going to read the same way. As far as I'm concerned, when a child is bullied, the parent's notified. They're not notified of who did the bullying or anything else that happened with it, but they're notified if their child was being bullied. The bullying child is also, parents are also notified. So they're separately notified, but one doesn't know who the other is, and that's the way that I believe it to be right now.
It's not. You didn't read my question right.
Okay, well.
I'm sorry, what are we going back and
That's
forth?
not the policy right now.
So as I know the policy to be, that's what I know it to be, that the child who's being bullied is we're notifying. To address bullying overall, I think, again, it comes back to those mental and emotional issues. I think it comes back to having some of that additional support. I do think that repeat offenders, and if you're having things in, if you can't get through with the parents, and sometimes, listen, it happens, you reach out to the parents. I know from coaching for 9 years, and I coach kids from 5 years old straight through to 14. It happens, and sometimes you don't get the parents who care enough sometimes, and you have to take some other actions. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Hayes?
As a board member, I would want to review the policy to verify how it deals with notification to parents of both the child that's initiated the problem, the behavior, and the child that's on the receiving end of it. I would also like to see that we have the behavioral health people in place to help both the bullier and the victim, and it's probably not fair to use those words on either right now, but in order for the children to identify what is appropriate behavior and how do you deal with it. Once the parent is made aware that their child has been a target of bullying behavior, they're able to bolster the child at home along the same lines that the behavioral specialist would be doing in the school itself in terms of giving some guidelines and some advice on how to deal with it.
Ms. Johnson?
Well, this again goes back to our lacking communication in the district, and there is absolutely no situation where a child is being bullied that it would not be in their best interest to notify the parents. There is just no excuse for this to be an actual policy. We've seen, those of us who've been in the district for a while have seen far too many youth suicides. How many of them are due to being bullied? I don't have those statistics. I'd be interested in knowing though. So I will look into that. But we need to involve as many people, not as few people, as possible when somebody is being bullied, to make sure that they are not going down a path where their mental health is going to be a danger to themselves or somebody else. So that means including social workers, school psychologists, external psychologists, parents, friends. Everybody needs to be on board, teachers and the administration. Everybody needs to be looking out for the well-being of those students so that the district's policy, their priority is more, their actions, our board's actions need to be more aligned with our policies. If student safety is number one, then our actions need to support that and show that.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Parker?
Bullies need to be reported, whether they are the bully or the bullyee. They have to be reported. Strong action be taken against a child that bullies another child. There's a lot of pressure there. I don't know, when's the last time you guys were at a soccer match? You see the way the parents act, oftentimes, it leads to, you know, your child follows what you do. You know, it's just, I get emotional behind stuff like this because it's right in our face. We see it all the time, and no one does anything about it. They say, oh, that's just, but it's not. It's hurting someone, you know, and no child deserves to have to go through that on a regular basis. So, yes, as board members, we will sit together, all of us, and work out a plan so that we make sure that the school is being, has the right policy for this issue. And that when parents come to report an issue of bullying, oftentimes the parent brings it to the school, and the school has to listen to that parent, you know.
Okay, thank you, sir.
There should be a zero tolerance for bullying. I believe that the communication should go out across the board on both sides, and the parents should be held accountable on both sides. For the child that's doing the bullying, their parents know that those children are doing the bullying because they are, just like Clyde said, they are repeating what they see at home. It should be a zero tolerance. Everyone needs to be communicated. The parents need to be held accountable. There need to be a 3-strike rule when it comes down to that, and then that's it. You know, yes, we have all the different psychologists and socialists, social workers on staff. That's fine, but the parents have to have some accountability with this. This is the behavior that started at home, not in school. So it should be a zero tolerance.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Rignola?
Okay. I believe that the Dignity for All Students Act was passed in 2012, I want to say, and it was mandatory enforceable in 2013. That every child has a right to an education, and anyone infringing on that right, you know, had to be reported. It's called a DASA report if there's bullying. And, you know, I've served on a DASA committee before where we outlined specific definitions for what is bullying. I know if somebody says, I don't like your shirt, that's not bullying. You know, but so there needs to be a clear definition of what is bullying, what the consequences are, and then it needs to be followed. There really is no, you know, no question about it. It's Dignity for All Students Act that has to be followed. And very often bullying is a cowardly behavior. I mean, either, you know, the person doing the bullying has been bullied, you know, but it's something that needs to be addressed also from that angle as well. Is why is the bullying going on? But, okay. Sorry, I said, could have got one more word.
All right, could the person who asked the question about the staff being reprimanded, could you just stop up here and just, I want to be sure I ask this question properly? Yes. We won't reprimand you for that. Oh, okay. All righty. Alrighty. Okay, so we'll start question number 9 with Mr. Ruda. Okay, apparently the district has reprimanded certain staff members for speaking out about what they think is in the best interest for their students and the community. I guess it might refer to some of the things that Frank belong, whatever. What is your opinion on that?
I think it's ridiculous. I think that as a teacher, it is your job, your responsibility, your heart to speak for your children. And sometimes that means speaking out to administration, speaking out to the public. If you see that there is a wrongdoing, innately, as an educator, you're going to stand up for those faces that are in front of you. And any teacher that doesn't stand up for them should be. And to have an administrator put a letter or a slap on the wrist because you are standing up for the very thing that they are representing is disgusting.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have
Mr.
you read
Ford?
that one more time?
Yeah, apparently the district has reprimanded certain staff members for speaking out about what they think was in the best interest for the community or the district, you know. I think some of it goes back to Frank Belong, some of the health conditions there perhaps.
Okay, well, depending on the circumstance, I'll say it that way, because again, I keep hearing my keyword here, communication, coming up. But depending on the circumstances, if it's something that's dangerous or something that's harmful to the student and community and things like that, then I think absolutely it should be able to be said and no reprimanding being done. I do know that, and I'll say this, I do know that sometimes teachers will give their own personal opinion on things that, you know, may not reflect what a parent feels. So parents sometimes get upset with that. You know, I've had parents come, you know, in different conversations say, my student's teacher told them that Christopher Columbus was a crook and he was this and he was a thief and he, you know, and it's their personal opinion, so they got upset about it. So something like that, I understand when a parent gets upset and they go to the district with it or whatever else. But again, if it's something that's harmful for the community, for the child, then there should be nothing. That should be the first priority in that.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Hayes?
The First Amendment doesn't stop at the door of the schoolhouse, and that's regardless of whether it's opening to go in or coming out. There's certain limitations on scope, time, place, and manner in which speech can be held, and I think that our professional teaching staff is probably very well aware of what those limitations are. I imagine that they're monitoring their own selves to make sure that what they do is appropriate. So I want to jump to the next part of this idea about reprimanding the teachers. That's creating an environment within the school itself that is very diminishing, and it's not allowing for academic freedom, it's not allowing for vibrant discussion of ideas and exchange of ideas, and we're all not going to agree on everything. But for a teacher to be good at his and her job, they need to have that First Amendment right to do the right thing.
Okay, Ms. Johnson?
Communication, I can't stress enough how important it is that this be allowed between the board, between teachers, students, parents, community members, and open-mindedness to sometimes recognize that what you're doing, maybe it works, but that doesn't mean it's the best way. And when the teachers are in the classrooms every single day, nobody has a better handle on what's going on and what is best for the classrooms than they do. And we need to listen to them. As a parent, I want my child's teacher to go back for her. I want my child's teachers to stand up for themselves, because when we stifle a teacher, that's being felt by every student. And if we're showing at this age that teachers can't speak their minds, how are kids going to ever grow up to realize that they can speak their minds and stand up for themselves and for others? We're sending a very disappointing message by reprimanding teachers, and it's not okay.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Parker?
Boy, is there a lawyer in the house? I too believe that teachers have a very, very difficult job. They're in classrooms where in some cases there are too many students in a classroom. Teachers are there not only to teach but to observe. I think it's important that, I remember my humanities teacher. She was a great woman. She just did everything to make sure that I succeeded. And many times when it didn't seem like it was fair, but in the end, my father came in and they spoke with the teacher, and somehow they were able to agree on a direction. But teachers are important, and they have to be able to speak their minds, especially when it comes to the educating of a child.
Okay. Ms. Patrick Reese?
Who would know better than the teachers? For the teachers speaking out, that's how change has come about with this country, is by standing up and speaking out against something. So by the teachers speaking out against something in the district, obviously there's something that's incorrect, and they're trying to protect the children. So I think we should listen to them, and I don't feel that they should have been reprimanded, because they're there in the trenches every day with our children. So I think that we should just pull back and see exactly what the issues are and approach it differently, and work alongside with the teachers and not be so hard on them, because they have a difficult job as it is.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Nolan?
Okay, so because the question seems to be kind of general, I'm going to start off by saying any passionate teacher is going to stand up for what they feel is best for their kids, for all the kids in the district, because hopefully that's why they're there, because they're passionate about education and a healthy environment. This is kind of like twofold, because as far as reprimanding, I would want to know where and how this was done, because as far as personnel issues are very confidential. I don't know if the reprimanding was done in public. I would have a huge problem with that. All issues, and it's very difficult for the community sometimes to understand that personnel issues are extremely confidential. Because we want to know what's going on. But, if you have to understand from that person's point of view, that, sometimes that has to be kept confidential. But that's something that I would want to know, like to add on to that question of the reprimanding, and, do the kids know about this? And, how unprofessional would that be? Because you're asking the kids to pay attention to the teacher, and, all right.
Okay, Mr. Trent?
Well, Melissa mentioned the word that I'm going to repeat. It's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. We are supposed to be empowering our educators to speak up about, what's going on in the classroom or what's going on in their building. And, and I think it goes to that transparency and communication issue. If I can tell you right now, if I was on the board, that would not happen. Absolutely would not happen. Because when that transparency starts at the top, as I mentioned in my opening statement, you can have a transparent district if the individuals leading it aren't transparent, and muffling teachers because they want to speak out about health issues or what they feel is right isn't transparent. So I think that, when you muffle the teachers, we should be listening to them. We should be praising them for coming forward, giving their concerns, their questions, ideas. That's how we improve. And I think that moving forward, that's what we need to do. I like it or not, and I know if I was on the board when this happened, I would be with the teachers speaking up as well, regardless of what, my colleagues feel or what I can and cannot say.
Okay. Time for just a couple more questions. And this is a toughie. I don't know if there is an answer for this or whatever, but.
Thank you.
I'll throw it out there. Well, you get to go first. Okay.
That's what I said, thank you.
All right. What could the district do about kids that don't have the money for school trips?
What can the district do?
Yeah, I told you this wasn't easy.
No, listen, that's all right. All right. So, listen, everything that I say kind of goes back to personal experience, and that's what, we'll all do that, obviously. I deal with I've coached soccer for years, I coach football presently. And said, what does this have to do with anything, Jim? I'll try to wrap it all up in the next 43 seconds that I have left. There's kids that can't pay the membership for the football. It's $160 to play in the league. We don't turn kids away. We don't turn them away. We don't make them not play football and things like that. So we make sure there's different ways where we have funding for kids. We come up with different programs. There's always a way. So if that's something that, thanks. If that's something that is there, I don't think anybody should be deprived of going on something that's, a trip. It's educational. There's so much in there. There's social thing. I believe there's a way to make that happen. I do. I believe that it comes into some of the funding and where we allow certain funds. You can't pay for everything out there and do everything, but you know what? That's something that's important, and it's something that's an experience for a child that we can't turn them away. And I've never turned anyone away on the football field, and I wouldn't for a trip. It just doesn't make sense if somebody desires to be there. So I did it.
All righty. Ms. Hayes?
I think you had a very good point. I also think that we can reach out to resources in the community to get help to fund these extra activities for the children that cannot afford to participate. And we've seen it in the recent past with regard to some activities. You mentioned the football league. Some of that, I think, comes through the South Country Community Leadership Network that Dr. Gianni had pulled together to try to get local organizations to all pitch in together and not do things individually in order to maximize the service that they can provide. I do know that we can reach out to other segments in the community. There are an awful lot of retired people in our area who bring a lot of contacts, a lot of desire to try to help in the community and make things better for the children. I think we can look into fundraising activities and sources there.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Ms. Johnson?
Well, I think we could utilize the website to allow for community members to contribute to grants and scholarships for trips like the Frost Valley trip, the DC trip, Great Adventure. I'm sure we do have a lot of community members who would be interested in contributing to make sure that these students can have the same opportunities as many other students. We can also resort back to what we did back in my school days, which was good old fundraising. And it really motivates the kids, and the kids they're so excited about these trips every year that it gives them something to work for and strive for. And I also think that maybe we could try negotiating better contracts with the venues, with the transportation companies. I don't know what kind of rates we get or how hard we push to make allowances with them, make them aware of, 5% of our students may not be able to afford the trip. What can we do for them?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Parker?
Every school trip, every class trip, every child in that classroom should be able to go, should be allowed to go. You know what that does to a child? If you have a class trip, you send 80% of the kids and you leave 20 behind because they can't afford to go. It destroys that kid. There are so many ways of fundraising. I've been involved in PTA fundraisings for years. You should never, ever leave a child behind. And it's wrong. It's mean. And it creates hostility.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Patrick Reese?
I'm going to echo what a lot of the other candidates said, the fundraising. We can also reach out to the local chamber and ask them for a donation. Also, too, with my bank, we do have a foundation in which you can apply to twice a year that we do give out grants. So there are other resources that are out there that we can help the children so that this way the children can go on trips. I'm in process of helping out the Boys and Girls Club now, so this way that they can get computers.
Okay, great, thank you. Mr. Miller?
It's true, there are grants available out there for, certain trips, depending on what you're doing. I have had experience in doing this. I was able to take a coach bus load of kids up to Albany for a whole day of civics experiences. They didn't have to pay anything, and I got it through a grant. So if you look for certain things, there are certain grants targeted for certain things, and you can get free trips. Certain venues will give you, comp you certain things. But definitely, actually, not that they should have to do this, but I've seen teachers actually take money out of their pocket. They shouldn't have to do it, but I have seen it. I've seen teachers subsidize some of these trips, which I commend them for doing that. They shouldn't have to. But also PTA fundraising, that's what we had to do back in the day too. You had to sell your cookies and stuff. But, definitely, there are ways to do it. There's definitely grant money.
All right, thank you. Mr. Trent?
Well, first, I just want to applaud whoever asked that question, because it kind of brought back some memories. Thank you, because when I was in school, I remember the Frost Valley trip, and specifically the Washington D.C. trip that cost $800. And I love politics. I watch the news every night, and I wanted to go, but when I brought the packet home to my grandmother, we looked at the price, excuse me, and it was. It was way too expensive. Then the money for food, and we're trying to set the table to figure out a way to get the money together so I can go. But then, I had two other brothers, that are coming up, and they have trips and programs and stuff that they want to take on too. And I believe that this wasn't something that the district kind of didn't pay any attention to. It kind of went about unnoticed. And I really thank you for asking that question, because, something that the new board needs to address, because it does hit home, Mr. Parker. You hit the nail right on the head. It absolutely does hit home, because you sit in the classroom with nobody in it, with a TV monitor, wondering and seeing, about the fun that everybody else is having that you're not, because you simply can't afford it.
All righty, and Mr. Rubin?
I'm glad the topic did come out, because it's kind of been a little bit of a thorn in my side in South Country in terms of the outdoor learning experiences that our children have, especially at the elementary level. Being an elementary school teacher in a high-poverty district, the field trips, that we'll call them outdoor learning experiences, here in South Country were very different than what I'm used to in Brentwood. Our Brentwood population is low socioeconomic. And yet, each year as a fifth grade teacher, I take my students with me to the Statue of Liberty, I take my students with me to Philadelphia, on top of 2 to 3 other field trips. And we get all of the children to go. There are funds out there, there is fundraising, we do Applebee's, it is available. Unfortunately, the teachers here have not been allowed to do or look into doing certain field trips that it's a disservice to our children. The money is there. I do it every single year. 250 kids next month will get on that bus and go to Philadelphia for the entire day, and I will be exhausted at the end of the day, but it'll be worth every single ounce of money.
Okay, probably have time for one more question, and actually, I'm gonna ask it.
Okay.
A couple of you all kind of indicated, I can't really get that done in a minute. I cut Mr. Trent off on one of his things. So, question is, did the moderator cut you short on something you were really passionate about? And what do I want to spend that minute speaking about? And we'll start with Ms. Hayes.
Wow.
So you get a free minute on every subject that we covered so far tonight, it could be whatever.
It's such a broad topic that even with the extra minute,
I'm sure there's something I must have cut you off on that you wish you had another.
well, one thing I would like to stress, regardless of whether you cut me off or not, is I want to be able to help the board come together, have open discussions, to work with the superintendent. Again, as I mentioned, the superintendent is the board's employee. And to oversee the superintendent who is administering the rest of the school district and the operational chart. But there are things that we can do. We can be more involved in hiring committee, for example, getting in earlier as opposed to just seeing the last person proposed by HR for a particular position. How do we know how that person compared to the other candidates? How do we know that a proper search was done? There you go again.
Ms. Johnson?
Oh, goodness. I'm gonna go back to,
By the way, any you can say, I'm good. And just go to the next- That's allowed too. Sorry, I didn't mean to.
I'm going to go just briefly to communication. I'm not going to let you cut me off here. I'll stop first. Melissa had Aruda had mentioned earlier about the bomb threat at Frank P. Long when all the students were shuttled over. And I completely agree that they handled the move very swiftly and very well. However, parents were not notified. That was a terrifying day for me when my daughter texted me to tell me that she was on her way to the middle school instead of Frank P. Long and had no idea why. And the fear that I heard coming through from my daughter and me not being able to comfort her and explain to her, it's okay, honey, here's what's going on, or I'll tell you about it later, but it's okay. When all I had were my own fears as a result, this just really amplified the need for improved communication. And it's no parent should have to feel that. That's not just enough.
Beautiful, thank you. All right, Mr. Parker, sir.
Boy. Just if you look at all the questions, is there one question? No. They were all good questions.
Yeah,
You
they
did a
were.
great
They were
job.
excellent
Thank you.
questions tonight.
And some of the questions were not easy. So, but just again, communication is very important between the staff, between the parents, between the trustees, the principal. All of that is just so important. And if we don't have a way of communicating, and effective communication, many times we talk around the subject. We don't want to deal with it because it's embarrassing or whatever. But effective communication should just be a priority in this case. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Patrick Reese?
Well, I agree with everything that everyone says, but we keep forgetting one little tiny word, accountability. You can have everything, you can have communication, you can have whatever policies and procedures and whatever in place, but if we don't hold individuals accountable, we're not going to make a change.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Rignola?
I think you cut me off on every question, so I can't really answer in one.
We'll pick one.
I know. Well, I have notes here of things that I didn't get to, so it's probably gonna be a little scattered. But I think what's important here, as far as things that could be changed, and I think I touched upon morale. South Country seems to be, they get like some bad publicity and then it goes like viral, the bad publicity. And then we don't seem to like rebound very well. So I think that having a positive culture and identity committee, which is, I would be very happy to chair it, it would bring a lot of the community together, and you would be doing so many good things that when, one thing trips up, another thing trips up, we would rebound so fast. We wouldn't have that bad rap all the time. I know it's a good district, and I went here, I think I came out okay. But, even as a real estate agent, I want to show houses, and somebody says, oh, it's South Country. I'm like, yeah, but what's wrong with South Country? Oh, no, can we go somewhere else? Because we just get a bad rap all the time. And I would want to do committees where the community comes in and they can see we can do good things, and that would get out there. That, that kind of stuff. You need the publicity of the good things. So I would want to touch upon having all kinds of committees, and Positive Culture and Identity Committee would be something that I would definitely chair.
Okay, and by the way, you all get a 2-minute closing, so you still got another 2 minutes. All right, Mr. Trent, sir.
Well, I guess briefly I'll touch on morale. It's really unfortunate that, there is a high level of low morale in the schools. And sitting here listening to these questions, I can really see why that is. And, again, as I said, a lot of these things, when you have the proper flow of communication, the proper level of transparency, and when you not only listen but act on what it is you're hearing, then morale would go up. And again, I feel like it's the individuals at the top that kind of set the tone for the organization, whatever it is, library, school board, company. So when those individuals at the top embody that transparency, that honesty, that trustworthiness, that willingness to do the work and to communicate, then it should, everybody else should follow suit. And if not, you should hold them accountable. When we send out a letter without mentioning the fact that the parent can have the option to opt out, the individual responsible for that should be held accountable, absolutely. So, morale is important.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Ruda.
Okay, so I will go back to something that's near and dear to my heart, which is the testing and the opt-out movement. The testing here, just in South Country alone, beyond just the state test, we over-test our children. I spoke with administration last year for several hours on some of the tests that were created by teachers. They were not created by teachers. They were created from Engage New York, and they were polled state test questions that parents were not told about. And I had advocated for those to be removed. When it comes to the testing that happens here, it's a lot. We know that the state tests are flawed. We know the state makes errors. Sometimes they even make errors as to who they target with their schools. Wondering when our administration is going to let us know that they've targeted one of our schools that's not supposed to be targeted.
Okay, and Mr. Ford, you get the close this one.
All right, thank you for the minute, and I know we have the two afterwards, but I'm gonna really quick kind of go back to what everyone's been saying here, and then the issue, the root issue of everything, that communication and transparency. So again, for me, I think that you didn't necessarily cut me off on it, but I think we need more of that. We need more open, say, transparency. We need more ways to communicate. We need more ways to get out, like I said, into the community, into the Boys and Girls Club. It's important, there's other avenues, other methods to get communication back and forth. I think it kind of comes to people being comfortable, being able to communicate. Sometimes people, again, they don't have the time to come down here tonight, but they could have communicated another way, possibly. Maybe there's another way to reach out to them. I'm going to stop before my bell goes off, but that was my big one.
Alrighty, so we come now to closing statements, and we do that in the reverse order from the opening statements. So, Mr. Trent, you get to go first.
Well, actually, it's kind of weird because preparing for this, I kind of did everything besides prepare my closing statement. But I guess I'll just say, that the district really deserves a representative board, that will listen and act, incredibly important. And I think that the questions that were asked, a lot of the candidates had similar answers. So I hope that we can take the answers that were given and make them reality, because otherwise, there's no reason to have it. And an open dialogue and discussion with the community is important, as well as with the parents. So we constantly know, what the community's feeling is, what are the issues? Because there are some questions that were asked that I didn't even know were issues, or did know that were issues, but kind of have suppressed it because nobody else thought that there were issues, like with the students that are able to afford the trips. So, I guess I hope that I can convince you guys that I am someone that embodies those things that I believe a trustee should have.
Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Rinola?
Okay, so, well, to wrap up, on May 21st, a week from now, it's going to be in the hands of the public who gets elected here. I'm asking for the endorsement of the community. That's who I'm going to represent. I have a record of being a representative of the community. I'm very approachable, and I problem solve, and I actively listen. I think that's, everybody talks about communication, which is very important, but it's being an active listener so that you understand what's needed, whether we do that in the way of surveys or SurveyMonkey or whatever, talk to people. I'm very approachable to talk to. So I would be asking for the endorsement of the community. In the words of the great Jerry Maguire, help me help you, because that's what I would be doing. I need you to help me so that I can help you. I have a lot of experience that I can bring here, and that's why I'm here, because I know I can make a difference. I know I can change things and make a difference because I've done it. I've done a lot of work. I'm pretty sure I've been appointed to every possible committee that there has been in a school district. I've worked very closely with New York State School Board Association. That's why, I've won numerous awards. I've actually written a workshop on how to be a better board member, which is kind of ironic that I'm here now. But, I do have a Facebook page, so, I implore you to go look at my Facebook page. It's not always easy to kind of toot your own horn, so if you go look at the Facebook page, you'll see some of the stuff I've done. And like I said, all districts are different, all schools are different, but knowing how to be a board member, I know I can tailor my knowledge, my experience to South Country School District where I grew up. And I know that we have the potential to be better than we've ever been before.
All righty. Ms. Patrick Reese?
I want to thank you all again for coming out and being here with us for the last couple of hours. Some of you do know me, some of you do bank with me. I am a newbie to all of this with the school board. I do want to be part of the school board and to help the school board move forward. I'm here also to learn. I've enjoyed my experience running these last few weeks and being here amongst the other candidates. It has been a wonderful experience for me. I just want to be part so I can help with the children and help build the gap, bridge the gap between the parents and the teachers. Again, to build that bridge and to also be part of that village. Again, I am a newbie, I am not an educator, I'm a banker, so I do want to give back to the community and be part of this. And again, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We need bankers too.
Mr. Parker?
Thank you all for coming out. It's been quite an experience. I bring to this evening a lot of experience. I've done many things. I've been, as I say, I sit on several boards, many committees. I'd like to bring that experience to this South Country. As I said, I'm in the community that I live in. I am very active, whether it's in North Bellport or South Bellport. I sit with the guys and girls in our delis in the morning. I talk about issues that affect our schools, our environment. All of that is part of what I think trustees should do. We shouldn't just sit in a room and talk with each other. We should be out talking with the community so we'll know exactly what it is they would like of us. I do that. I'm just very active, and I'd like to share some of what I do with this, I can't get the words out of my mouth. What is it? The South Country School? Right. So I want to end this by, every year there's an annual NAACP fundraiser, and they have a slogan, and that slogan is, "A mind is a terrible thing to waste." Okay? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Johnson?
I want to sincerely thank everybody for coming out and for streaming tonight. You hit us with some difficult topics in your questions, and please keep doing that. We all need that. nobody wins by taking the easy way out, and keep pushing. This, as terrifying as this was tonight, it was really very heartwarming to see the community come out here and care about such important issues and not be afraid to speak up about them. And I think most of us sitting up here share a lot of similar views, and I want to applaud all of you because this was really a great evening of hearing how passionate all of you are. And I walked into this thinking passionate is one of the adjectives I would always use to describe myself, but it definitely applies to each of you too, and I thank you for that. It's really been an honor sitting out here with all of you. In my spare time, I spend a lot of time advocating and doing activism for all living beings, for humans, for animals. It's just something that's very important to me, and I'd be honored to carry that through by serving on the board, by listening to your voices, your concerns, and by working hard to make sure that it's a safe space for teachers, for students, that your tax dollars are being spent wisely. And I would just end by saying that feel free to please contact me. I've got a campaign page on Facebook, Karen Johnson for South Country Board of Ed, or if you see me in the neighborhood, run down and ask any questions. I don't have to be on the board to have an open door policy, and I certainly do. So thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Hayes?
Thank you for making your best efforts to choose the people that you think would be best to represent you and your children and your grandchildren and your neighbors and the other taxpayers in this district. I, about 8 years ago, was one of the founding members of a group that we call Concerned Residents of South Country. And we mainly were interested in restoring integrity, accountability, and child-centered decision-making into our district. I've heard those topics talked about tonight as well. So I want to say that in my professional life and also the volunteer life, I've acted in the best interest of my clients or in my neighbors or my community as best I could. I put my best effort into it. I recognize what a fiduciary duty is, and that's putting the best interest of the clients first, above all else. I've worked collaboratively and been a consensus builder. I can advocate. I make decisions based on facts. I can do the research. And if I am elected, I hope to be able to give more work to the board by increasing the number of meetings that we have, to incorporate work sessions so that there can be full understanding among all board members of exactly what are the issues we're dealing with, what do we need to address, and then we can have discussions of how best to achieve it, and that would be done in open meetings, both the work session and the regular business meetings under the open meetings law, so that the public hears why we're making the decisions we're making.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Ford?
All right. So as we all said, I have to say I'm very pleased that, not knowing everyone here and not knowing their views and where they were coming from, I'm very happy to hear that a lot of my concerns and my interests were echoed through most of you. So thank you. Thank all of you for coming down here, taking the time. Those who are live streaming, and again, I keep doing this because I'm not sure where I'm looking, but thank you for taking that time. Is that where it is? Thank you. Gotcha. All right. That's the first time I'm looking at the right one. So to me, the board, it's the governing body over the district. All right. So there's never been a more important time than this year, as far as I'm concerned, because more than half the board is changing this year. We've gone from 9 to 7 seats. Okay. So with 7 seats, 4 of them changing. More than half the board is changing. Okay, now, speaking with people who've been on the board for years and kind of going through this, like I said, I've had people that I voted for and they're there and I trusted them. You know, that first 6 months, that first year, man, those times go really fast. There's a learning curve in there for everybody, okay? So having 4 seats changing, there's gonna be a big learning curve for all of us. There's additional education in there and everything else. So the board being that important, being the governing body over the district, is the voice of the community. It's there for the teachers, the students, the parents. It's so important to have fiscally responsible people, all of the things that it entails. And I think that with that, I'll let everybody else know that whoever has the other 3 seats, please make sure, I'm willing to work with everybody on all the things that are important. You get that one. with everything that's important, because again, I agree with everything that we said here. Everybody here, you know, is here for the right reasons. It's in their heart. I know they're here for the right reasons. Nobody's here for their own agenda and things like that. So I do appreciate all of you for that. I truly do, and I wanted to say that, and thank you again, everybody.
Saruta?
Okay, I will make it brief. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight and for watching. For the past 5 years, I've been sitting in those chairs once to twice a month, almost every single board meeting. And I've been advocating for your children, for you. I've been doing it somewhat quietly, somewhat behind the scenes, but I've been advocating for them. Now it's my turn to sit on this side of the table and have my voice heard a little bit louder, to have your voice heard a little bit louder. I have a special interest group. It's children. It's your children. It's you. I've sat here through budget meetings. I've sat here for 5 years listening to what's going on in the board, watching what's going on, talking with community members, with board members, with administration, with teachers. It's my time to be that person that's going to speak on your behalf, to do on your behalf, on your children's behalf. We're going to increase the collaboration between the parents, the community, the teachers, and the administration. I didn't say we're gonna try, we're going to increase that collaboration because the children sitting in those classrooms need it. We're gonna move South Country to the forefront. We're gonna use the resources that we have right in front of us. Your children, you, and our teachers. I have a voice, and I'm not afraid to use it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the evening. Thank everybody for coming out. It's nice that 8 board members running, all 8 of them showed up tonight, which is fantastic. And some really, really excellent questions, hard questions. So, thanks again. Thank you very much. Get home safe. Thank you so much. No worries.
An hour ago.